Biden says that Israel should not target Iranian nuke facilities. What are your thoughts on that? What should Israel respond?
I mean, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. It's the biggest risk we have. The biggest risk we have is nuclear. I mean, to make the statement, please leave their nuclear alone, I would tell you that that's not the right answer. That was the craziest answer. Because you know what? Soon they're going to have nuclear weapons, and then you're going to have problems.
We heard it from Iran's supreme leader today. He does not come out and give a sermon. He has not done it in years. And yet he did today. And among other things, he expressed solidarity with Palestinians and Hezbollah. And he says Israel won't last long.
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei denounced Iran's enemies, pointing to Israel.
The actions taken by our armed forces a few nights ago was a lawful response.
کاری که نیروهای مسلح ما کردن کمترین مجازات
The operations carried out by our armed forces was the least as a response against the Zionist occupation.
He also spoke of Operation, as he called it, Al-Aqsa Flood, the name that was given to the Hamas-led attack on southern Israel on October the 7th. He described that as a lawful act of resistance.
Hezbollah wants apartheid and ethno-supremacism to be dismantled. In other words, something that in the West is very impossible to imagine. All human beings in Palestine.
Well, it wants Israel destroyed. It wants the destruction of Israel.
Why would you do that when the Iranians and the IRGC are saying death to America too? It defies all logic. Biden has been an Iranian sympathizer from the very beginning. The Obama administration was like this too. The question is, what is Harris going to do? We have to ask her. This is a war happening in the Middle East. So when they talk about escalation, this is already a war.
We're in discussion with that. I think that would be a little, anyway.
What are the plans to allow Israel to strike back against Iran?
First of all, we don't allow Israel, we advise Israel, and there's nothing going to happen today. We'll talk about that later.
Well, look, the bottom line is not whether we have a wider war in the Middle East. We now have a wider war in the Middle East that's going on. And part of this is going to depend on Israel and the targets they decide to strike.
Do you support an attack on Iran's nuclear sites by Israel?
The answer is no. I think there's things we'll be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do.
This tiny little country is fighting all of America's enemies. And yet you've got a U.S. president who got together with the G7 to decide what Israel should do. And in no world would I have ever expected that he would take the side of the Ayatollah, that he would take the side of the Ayatollah telling Israel, don't do it, hold back, and calling for restraint.
He called on Muslim nations to unite. He said the enemy is enemy of all of our nations is one. All these countries that he named, basically Egypt, Yemen, he says our enemy is one enemy, and this enemy is trying to divide us.
And what Netanyahu is going for here, he's not going for stop the fighting. He's going for the win.
Iran helped create Hezbollah, helped train Hezbollah at the start. Iran has funded Hamas, funded the Houthis. Israel has now, if you look at this purely objectively from the outside, from a military point of view, is having a lot of success against Iran-backed groups. Where is Iran? Why is it not responding? Many people think it's because actually Iran doesn't have either the ability to take on Israel or the desire to.
The Ayatollah told a huge crowd in the Grand Masala Mosque that Iran and its allies must roll up their sleeves and prepare for action.
This isn't a just war between two nations with legitimate gripes. There aren't good people on both sides. This is a democratic ally fighting for its very existence against terrorists. This is not a war against Palestinians or Lebanese or Iranians. It's a fight to liberate them. If you care about innocent civilians everywhere, then you must stand with Israel. Imagine the Middle East without terror. It's hard to, isn't it? Imagine every cent in Gaza going towards health and education instead of terror tunnels and bombs. Imagine Iran liberated and free like it once was. Imagine peace. There's only one side fighting for that right now. And their victory in the Middle East is the only one that will ever achieve it. And when they win, and they will, the biggest benefactors won't be Israelis or Jews or even the rest of us in the West. It will be all of those people in places where terror is not only directed towards Israel from, but at its own people within. The innocent citizens of all those places that have been hijacked and turned into terror hubs.
And whether or not Israel can possibly limit its response or whether it goes all out. And if it goes all out, then Iran is going to respond as well. So we are at a moment in which we will either find a way to limit this war in the Middle East, or we will have a full-scale war on our hands.
The tide is turning. There's been a shift. You can feel it and you can see it. A cottoning on within countries in the Middle East that terror is not the answer, nor is it noble, nor does it offer the kind of existence any sane, rational parent wants for their children, regardless of their religion. The terrorists, they know this too, by the way. They see it as well. The biggest threat these regimes face isn't the intelligence or military might of Israel, though that does and should scare them. It's their own people waking up and realising that they are being used, killed, sacrificed, slaughtered for no greater good or higher purpose, for evil. And there's a ticking time bomb, not the kind that Iran sent toward Israel last week, but an even scarier and more powerful one from within. And it's getting louder.